college basketball fans, welcome back to the College Ball Show. I'm Chris, he's Marshall, and we're here to talk about, of course, college basketball. Now, we definitely want to thank everyone out there who has been listening since late August to the College Ball Show, football-wise, obviously, and that's why we call it the College Ball Show, because ball, and I'm not going to get too weird here, but, you know, we call it football and basketball. So now we're fully in to the college basketball season. We're going to take this thing all the way till April and the national championship, and then stay with us because we will be doing the NBA playoffs, NBA draft, NBA free agency, and all that. We'll basically be doing shows till sometime in July. So stay with us all the way through. But like I said, we are back and we're here to talk some college basketball. And I guess right off the bat, you don't want to be a number one team, ranked team right now because you lose. We've definitely seen a theme of that. I mean, I saw some fresh odds, like the top 10 or top 15 odds to win a national championship. And, of course, it's a little different, you know, than, say, college football, for instance, or even some of the other pro leagues or whatever as far as, you know, the odds of doing it, just how hard it's, you know, it is to do it, having to win all those games in a row. Sometimes it skews the odds. It makes it closer than some of the other sports is what I'm talking about. But, just looking at the odds, you're like, are you fucking kidding me? We talked off air just a second ago, Marshall and I did, about, you know, like the fact that the ACC only has 3, maybe 4 teams that would qualify, you know, to the tournament right now is telling. Now, some of that will get worked out in this next month and a half. Some of these teams, North Carolina, Virginia, some of these squads, Duke, I mean, even Duke right now, they have tough non-conference schedules. And so some of them, as long as they get it going in their conference play, they're still going to make the tourney. Some of them will actually have decent seeds. So yeah, like I said, there is just the amount of teams though that, you know, are going down at that number one spot is pretty crazy. But all this bodes well, you know, come March and April. That's for sure. We should have a crazy March and April. We'll start a little bit, you know, with the recap from this weekend. There were a couple of big upsets. Actually, Louisville beat Duke at Duke. That was a big game. Variety of other games that we'll cover. I think Baylor in the AP poll overtook Gonzaga, if I remember correctly. So Baylor's the number one team. They, I think, have the longest winning streak as well going on. So there's a variety of, Seton Hall's got a really good winning streak going on. So we're going to talk all about it. There is some surprise teams like, say, a Colorado, you know what I mean? Washington State, beating Oregon, at home. So there's a variety of things that we'll talk about. We'll also look towards what's coming, you know, this week and obviously for next weekend, some of the marquee matchups, some of the games under the radar, maybe some upset specials, that type of thing. But if this is your first time listening to the College Ball Show, it streams live in archives right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-It-Up-Radio. It's basically the headquarters. But if you want to listen to the College Ball Show, you don't have to listen to the Rope-It-Up Radio podcast just on Blog Talk. Okay, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, all sorts of places. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found everywhere, including Spotify. In fact, through Siri and Alexa, through TuneIn and Spotify, you can find both platforms. Why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.net. It's basketball, football, baseball, boxing, everything in between. That's thegruelingtruth.net. They got a great sponsor over there, betnow.eu, with the promo code TGT. And one last thing. If you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you already have, and you're just not quite happy, you want to watch some sports, you want to watch something, you want to have some channels, live channels, I got the thing for you. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's streaming live cable. You can try it for free for 7 days. They do have the 7-day free trial. There's no annual contract that ties you down. The plans start as low as $50 a month. They have the cloud DVR. You can stream it anywhere. And it's a growing platform. So it's here in Minneapolis. It's in areas of California, Texas, New York, the Northwest, up in Seattle, in the Midwest in St. Louis. There's a variety of different places where it's available. It's called AT&T TV Now. You can go to the website, just Google it, and put in your area code and see if it's available for you. Like I said, it's a growing platform. It keeps adding channels, adding technology, improving the technology, I should say. It's called AT&T TV Now. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Marshall, who I was wondering off camera why he was having – it seemed like there was just something off. I've known him now for – which is crazy to think, but for a decade. Known him for a decade. I could just kind of tell. We were talking, and I was like the first thing I asked him was like, did you lose money on the conference finals last night or something like that? He's like, no. He told me this story about, a variety of stuff. So it was quite it was an entertaining tale, but also now I understood where his mindset was. What's going on, Marshall? We are now full-fledged, full-blown into college basketball. And how are you doing on a personal level, of course, and just in general? For those out there, he coaches. He does coach basketball. So, yeah, we're knee-deep in this college basketball season now.
I honestly, for life, besides today's craziness and losing car keys, which occasionally happens, I guess, when you're not paying attention, coach life's pretty good, man. My girls, my freshmen, we're 4-1 in district. If we beat the team tomorrow that beat us earlier this year, we could win out and win district. So, I mean, it's just freshman basketball, but we got 13 wins on the year, could finish with 19 if we win all 6. But tomorrow we only got 8 girls playing. So hopefully the ones who are ready to play tonight have some energy tomorrow, because with 8 people on the court, you run out of energy pretty quick. Yeah. Besides that, man, it was weird. It was kind of the first Saturday where it's just been, okay, sit back on the couch and there's no football. There's no SEC game of the week. There's no LSU hype. It's okay. Now time to just start watching basketball. And honestly, like, one of the best games I've seen all year, actually, my dad was in town visiting me. We just kind of turned on the TV randomly on Saturday. Just to kind of recap with a really good game from this past week. St. John's and Seton Hall played a hell of a basketball game Saturday morning. We were talking about this before going on the air. The Big East is actually a really good conference this year. They actually probably have more top-end heavy teams this year than does the ACC, which you wouldn't assume, considering the ACC has 15 teams and the Big East, I believe, has 10. But if you want to watch just kind of like that, Chris, that old school, like, rugged, kind of hard-nosed basketball, Big East basketball, that was it, man. Even my dad was like, man, the rest would let him play. It was like going up for rebounds, getting hacked, like guys going into the lane, trying to draw flops or trying to draw charges. Nothing was going on. It was just old school Big East. The game was at Madison Square Garden. Seton Hall ended up winning. And if you've not watched basketball and seen them play, you're missing out on a stud. Their main guy is Miles Powell. A lot of people believe he's like a top 5 player in the country, for sure, probably top 10. He's a Seton Hall guard. The dude's a stud. And St. John's, even though they're 1-5 in the Big East, like, they put together a hell of a fight. Seton Hall ended up winning 82-79. But it was kind of cool because as we became friends over a decade ago or so, as crazy as that is, I do remember us always talking about the Big East and how much that's changed from, like, it used to be like, man, we got the Big East tournament that starts on a Tuesday because they had so many teams, they had to, like,
Right.
fit all the games in. And it was a nice flashback, Chris, of like, man, that's some old school Big East basketball, just bump and grind and just, you gotta work hard for a layup, and if you're going to get fouled, they're not calling it. So it was fun, man. And, again, if you've not seen Miles Powell play, he's the guy you should put on your list of, like, could be fun to watch in March, or a guy that's going to carry his team deep, something like that. So put him on your little imaginary watch list because the dude's a pretty good player. And Seton Hall is actually undefeated in the Big East 6-0. So yeah, that was a fun way for me to start my college basketball season now that football's over.
Yeah, that's a good call too. And they've won 8 straight games in general. They were down 43-30 at half. I think it got to 15 or something like that. They made a rally 52-36 in the second half. Powell had 23 of his 29 in that half too. So yeah, you're right. The one thing that we mentioned, usually when we talk about the Big East now, it's always mid-March, right? Right
Sure.
when the conference title, or the conference tournaments come around, like you said, and it'll always kind of be there, because of those Friday and Saturday night games. The doubleheader on Friday, and at least one of them's going to double or triple overtime. We know that, and then the final obviously on Saturday, and that's going to be missed. That will always be missed. I really hope they do. I'm assuming they're going to do a 30 for 30 on that. I know they've done it on the Big East. I know they've specialized in certain, like a run through the Big East, but I think they can do a 30 for 30 just on the Big East tournament. Because there's just so many memorable moments. So yeah, it is kind of like, that's too bad. But one thing we did say as far as the regular season goes, considering, they got tore up, the conference. So considering to bring a squad like Butler in, you know what I mean, a basketball squad, I thought they did a good job of keeping or reassembling and just make it a basketball conference. And
Sure.
You're like, all right, dude, that's pretty cool. I mean, sometimes I think 80s and 90s, the Big East had a better, because they had Virginia Tech and they had Miami, and Boston College was more consistent back then. So they still were respected. They weren't the conference by any stretch of the imagination, still looked at as a basketball conference, but not nearly as much as they are now. So I did think that they did a really good job of at least just, trying to keep it around. It's not that easy. So that was pretty key. And even going back to a couple games from last week, even before Saturday.
Go
ahead.
Just to wrap this up, not to become a huge Big East fan. I think I'm looking for love in basketball because my Heels are so bad this year. But I wasn't joking when I said the Big East has better teams, like top heavy than the ACC. Like, that's normally never a statement we've ever said. Like, again, the ACC is normally like, oh, dude, ACC or Big Ten, like that's a guaranteed top conference. Not now. Not that can't change, as you said, but when the hell we ever done a show in the past 5 to 6 years where at least I believe the Big East is better than the ACC? That is kind of just normally a statement you wouldn't make. I guess that's kind of hard to fathom because you said they're normally kind of a smaller conference, but yeah, to give them credit, they put together a good squad, and that's also a sign to the ACC that you got to kind of wake the hell up because, I mean, with 15 teams in the conference, you should at least have a guaranteed 8 in, and as of now, you're saying, Chris, it's looking at 4. So I'll wrap that up there, but ACC, man, it's not as regularly star-studded as it used to be in the, past couple of how many years.
Yeah, and it's really just this year, and we're going to kind of let that play out too.
Sure.
But yeah, you're right. It is a strange one. This whole season, it's not strange. It's like really good. Like it's a good thing. It's a positive thing.
Yes.
The parity is definitely a positive thing in a lot of ways. It's kind of nice not having an unbeaten team right now. You know what I mean? Or a team that just looks like, you know what, they're going to get it together. They're going to win the championship. They're at least going to the Final Four, at least. You can't really give teams championships because of the run, obviously, but like you can in other sports, of course. But even going back real quick, Washington State, like I mentioned, got a nice win over a pretty good Oregon club this year who's made some noise in the tournament a little bit. Colorado seems to be a ranked squad that's pretty good. They got a decent win on the road. And like you said, just talking about some other stuff on Saturday, Baylor and Oklahoma State actually played a pretty tight game. We'll get back to that Duke and Louisville in just a moment. But I mean, if you look at the ranked teams, this is just an example of the ranked teams going down. And obviously the higher ranked team, Duke against 11 Louisville. That's not a crazy upset, but it was at Duke, so that kind of adds to it. But then Florida, who's had a decent year, nothing that stands out, they go ahead and protect their home court, beat Auburn, who was unbeaten at the time. 22 points they got beat, dude. Like that was unbelievable how they just handled them. DePaul beat Butler, a Butler team that looks pretty good. Texas, this was my actually upset of the week in my first prediction blog, because I make them real upsets, you know what I mean? So I picked Texas over Kansas at home, thinking they'll just randomly do it. They almost did, 66-57. If you go further down the list, Miami almost beat Florida State, and this isn't football. Even though Miami's a decent club, they haven't been as good in the last 2 years as they were, say, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But then you look at West Virginia, who's looking pretty good this year. They get handled at home by K-State. Wichita State goes down 65-54 to Houston, who made it all the way, to the Sweet 16 last year. The list goes on. Colorado gets hammered on the road at Arizona, 75-54. Now, I don't expect, Colorado to just go in and beat no matter what kind of Arizona club it is right now, but I didn't think they'd get hammered. Then you had Penn State, who started out the season pretty well, lost a couple in a row. I think it was 3 in a row. One of them was the Gophers, but it was a tight game. They actually had the lead until, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes left or something like that. They had the lead for a good 15 straight minutes. They beat Ohio State, who now needs to get healthy and get some wins. They put up 90 on them. It's pretty crazy how many freaking upsets happened just on that Saturday alone. Now you look at yesterday, it was a much more mild schedule. Just because, you're not going to go head to head with your best product against the NFL. There's no point to it. But speaking of a game that I would care about, Rutgers and Minnesota, 64-56. Rutgers protects home court. They're 14-4. And I don't think they actually got. Did they get into? I don't think they actually got ranked yet. Oh, they did. They got to 24. And it has been, wait a second, the first time in over 4 decades since Rutgers was frickin' ranked, which I did not know it had been that long. I thought it was a long time. I would have picked at least 20 years, but for the first time in over 4 decades. And dude, that coach and that squad, they're on the up and up, and they showed signs of that last year. I just didn't think they'd be ready to go. They're 14-4. Rutgers, you look at where they're at in the conference, you're like, oh my goodness. It's one thing for Illinois, who at least in the last 10, 20 years has produced, competent clubs and really good clubs, Final Four clubs and all that type of thing. That's no crazy thing that they would be able to put a team together at some point and get, be in the top tier. But Rutgers, so yeah, it really, it's pretty crazy, man. And tonight, that's going to tip off in just a little bit. Actually, one did, West Virginia and Texas. West Virginia's up 13-10 right now. And Oklahoma at Baylor. And Baylor is number 1 at 15-1 on the season. So if that Saturday doesn't tell you, this whole thing is up in the air, I don't know what will, Marshall.
One huge red flag, if you're going to gamble on college basketball, the best advice I can give you, Chris, or anyone else listening, is if you're going to bet a team to win on the road, unless this is a 20-5 team playing a 2-10, whatever, you got to have some studs. Obviously I gamble on college basketball, and one thing I've been thinking really hard about is, before I ever click, hey, this road team's going to win, God damn, is it hard to win basketball games, on the road. Like you mentioned, Florida, Auburn. I think Auburn was a small favorite. They're the undefeated team. That game wasn't even close. So advice for the season as you go. Rutgers is undefeated at home. like, the Gophers are probably the better team in most people's eyes, but again, the home court advantage in college basketball is so insane where if you're going to bet games, I always be conscious of betting against the home team. Because unless you got studs, Chris, it really is crazy. Because here's a great stat for it. In the Big Ten, I believe up until this past Thursday, so I think every team had played roughly 5 games, give or take. So you're looking at, in between 30 to 40 games in the Big Ten, there had been 5 teams winning on the road. Like, holy shit. Like, you played over 30 games, there's been 5 away teams winning.
Right.
It just, so if you're going to bet basketball and you're taking a road team, you best feel damn good. They best have some true dog that's going to just get the work done. Like, he's going to go all out.
Somebody key on the other squad, the home squad, better be hurt too.
Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents. Cause man, college basketball, it's fun to watch. I love it. But if you're betting the away teams, I wish you luck. Not that upsets never happen, because they do. And there are road teams who are better that do win on the road. But it is a rarity you normally don't see as much compared to the other sport with such a huge difference.
Yeah, and also I just texted you something about that updated odds thing. We'll talk about that in a second. And just to add another layer of what you're saying, inside the Big Ten, unranked teams now are 9-1 versus ranked opponents at home this season. I mean, in Maryland, just barely, it was in Madison. They almost got there, but that Davidson, he took care of business with that 3 in the corner. But it just goes to show you where we're at here. Like, that's a freaking crazy stat right there too. I mean, but yeah, just the thing that I sent you off of that. I'm glad you brought that Big Ten so I could add another layer. And obviously, like I said, it is different when you look at, odds to win a championship, because the league's set up differently. You have a lot of games. It fluctuates a lot more during the season, and you got to win 6 straight. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a lot more. There's just not as large a gap. But when you see Baylor plus 1,500, Gonzaga plus 1,000, Kansas plus, when you start to look at these numbers, you talked about how Seton Hall is looking damn good this year. I mean, look at Dayton. Dayton's a team that's been good, and now this year it looks like they're really, really good. And they got into the top 10. I saw this video of some on Twitter of some fans from Dayton, like almost crying because they're out of excitement because they're in the top 10. You know what I mean? Like, they're freaking out, like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And it really shows you, like, just how close this stuff is going to be. And to be fair, though, like I said, this is where you start to straighten things out in the next month and a half, I'd say is a good look right in there. Because obviously then you'll have, the bubble teams, much like the Minnesota Gophers last year, how they had to really do some damage down the stretch. They ended up getting to the second round and running into a team that made the Final Four. Otherwise, maybe they could have snuck in the Sweet 16. So yeah, like I said, later tonight, Oklahoma and Baylor as well. Is there any other games that you want to we're going to talk about that Duke Louisville, but as far as any other games that maybe you saw or whatever too, we could talk about. But let's get into some of that Duke Louisville. I almost forgot to talk about it. Duke, it's interesting because they got some talent, no doubt about it. I mean, they're Duke, just like North Carolina. They got some talent, but in this type of year, I hate to sound like a broken record we're going to sound like a broken record this year from podcast to podcast when we talk about this category. But man, I mean, when you look at this game, Louisville, it's actually the first time Louisville beat a top 5 Duke team since 1986 when they won the championship. But I was watching a good chunk of that game, and I liked what I saw out of Louisville. I think that obviously they had some issues, off the court and in the dormitories. They had some issues, but now it seems like they're in good shape where they're at, and they're going to get better and probably turn right back into a pretty established program in my mind. But they started out so well in that game. I think they had a 10-point lead. Yeah, 42-32. I thought the defense was turned up. I thought they just kind of outplayed them, and Duke definitely got back in the game. I mean, they only lost by 6 points, but Louisville was just able to hold them off down the stretch, and that's a big win this early in the season. Anytime you win at Duke, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think you said to start off the show, you summed up perfectly. Normally in the past handful of seasons, I would say since we've done this podcast, like you normally say, hey, I would put my $100 on so-and-so to win the title. They look to be the best team in the country. There's not that story this year. You can maybe play the angle with Gonzaga, but as usual for them, they're playing in a conference where they're not tested. So if you had to bet $100 on it, I think so-and-so team's going to win the title this year. That really is a pretty tough bet to make this year. If you're looking, ignoring your, love for your one team, like there's not a star-studded team. So, Duke, I know the ranking is high and the record's respectable, but this is not the Duke team of old where, they have a couple of lottery picks on their team, maybe in a couple of years, but, this isn't a star-studded team. So you got a team in Louisville who looks probably just as good or now better. Again, is Louisville going to cut down the nets? Who knows? But they obviously put together a nice win to walk into Duke. Their offense was basically working the whole game. You scored 42 points in the first half. You scored 37 in the second half. The game was never really in jeopardy at all. They had a comfortable lead. Like, that's a hell of a nice win. But it just goes to show that this is not a powerful Duke team like we're used to. And obviously my Carolina boys were trash this year too. I'm not going to, but a lot of top name teams are on a downfall this year that we're not used to seeing. And shit, Baylor's the second team in the country. Actually, now they're first. Like, that normally doesn't happen. I mean, Baylor's normally a mid-teens to ranked 20th team, and now they're the number one squad in the country, and Auburn's 4. Like, okay, that's been a minute since that happened. So, yeah, credits to them. That's a great win. I mean, despite, Duke being a little bit down this year, Louisville's on top of the ACC. They have a nice road win. I mean, their resume is looking pretty good, Chris. I've not seen them play as much yet.
Right.
But, if you're a college basketball fan at all, whenever you fill out a bracket, Louisville's normally never that, they had a first-round exit. Louisville's normally always a good Sweet 16 contender most of the time. So I'm not
they
surprised.
treat their players really good. You know what I mean? They hook them up.
Yeah, keep up team morale. That's all. That's how
it was,
go nowadays. Yeah.
Some people take, trips to Italy. Some people just do it right in their dorm room, dude. You know what I mean? You can get an Italian stripper. No, I'm sorry. I went too far. But yeah, Louisville shot 48% compared to 37%. And it's not like I say 3-pointers were the difference because they were, but it was only 7-6. However, Louisville had 7, Duke had 6, but they shot 25 of them. So those were not going down in general. So I'd say that was probably like, as far as the marquee, games go, I'd say that was by far the most marquee matchup, of the season. I've been watching Oregon a couple of times. They, won the game. They were down in the game. I think it's 16 points in the game, and they came back and they ended up winning overtime. They're doing pretty good in overtime. I think they're like 3-1 in overtime. I've seen a second game going to overtime too. Kentucky's trying to figure their stuff out. They got a decent win on the road. I don't know, man. It was an interesting week. Arizona looked like the club they've looked like for the last 6-7 years. We'll see if that holds up. Obviously, they've had their own internal issues as well, as we know. And your squad this year, the second squad, Creighton, got a win too, 78-74 over Providence, who, is always, a pretty good club. It's always a good club. And before we kind of talk about some of the conference races this early, just to give you an idea of how crazy, not just Saturday, but this last week was, and how, like I said, sound like a broken record, but how fun this thing may be as far as watching it. Just look at this. So number 3 Duke at the time lost twice this week. Auburn lost twice this week because they were unbeaten, then they got beat, and they got beat again. Butler lost twice this weekend. Kentucky lost once. Oregon lost once. It's like, talk about needing a new top 25 and having to vote all that in. That talk about like a pain in the butt there. I talked about Florida State as well. They've had a good run. 9 straight wins for Florida State. So they're definitely looking on the up and up, but when you go through some of these conference races, obviously, like I said, it's early. The AAC has put out some good squads over the years as well. We should give them a little bit of credit. Temple's been pretty good. Memphis is pretty good this year. Houston is now ranked. And Tulsa is sitting on the top 4-1 right now. Wichita State 15-3, but they're 3-2 in conference. And that's why I mean, like, you gotta wait and let these, couple of weeks, probably 6 weeks play out, because some of these teams can look all great going into conference play. And not to say Wichita State, who just, they're only 3-2, but if you look at, they're 3-2, they're 15-1 going into conference play. Well, now all of a sudden they're gonna have plenty of competition with Cincinnati, even SMU, Memphis, Houston, Tulsa. Now, is that like, are all those teams killers? No. But we know Houston and Memphis could be even better if they had a certain somebody. Another team out of the Atlantic 10, I'm not going to vouch crazy for the Atlantic 10, but they've been pretty damn good as that mid-major. You look at St. Louis, you look at Richmond, you look at some of these squads, Davidson over the years, obviously VCU, not of late, but they've been damn good. They're actually 13-5 on the season, but they're 3-2. But Dayton is 16-2 and 5-0 on the year. And so they're looking in pretty good shape, in that. But here you are, the ACC, dude. Florida State, Louisville, Duke, all in the top 10. You got 5, 6, and 8. So that's a normal thing, right? A bunch of teams in the top 10, but then Virginia 4-3, Virginia Tech 4-3, NC State 4-3, Syracuse 4-3. I mean, anything could happen in this mix, and I hate to say it, Marshall. I hate to do it to you, but 1-5 in conference, North Kakalaka, and they're 8-9 on the year. Say it ain't so. 8-9 on the year? Oh my goodness gracious. 1-5. They really are going to have to turn it around to even. I mean, when's the last time they didn't make the tournament?
I think it was the year after they won the title in 2009. So I think 2010 they had a pretty bad year. That's the last time they were under 500 too. But I mean, and I'm not saying we were a great team this year, but we beat Oregon earlier in the year, and we also had a player in Cole Anthony who is probably a top 5 lottery pick.
Right.
So if he's on the team, we're sure as hell probably 3-3, 3-4, maybe 4-3. Like we lost a guy that's a top 10 player in the country that was scoring like 24 points a game and was a good point guard. I mean, we still have a couple of good bigs this year like Carolina always does, but we can't shoot the three at all, not that we normally ever can, but our 3-pointers are bad, and we just don't have any guards that are like that play at a high level. I think our other guard got hurt, so we've lost 2 guards. You lost a lottery pick. You got a younger team. A couple of guys last year went pro and a little bit earlier than Roy thought. I mean, it just isn't a good year.
Right.
And I knew my red flag went up when we played Yale. This would have been 2-3 weeks ago, right before conference play, and we were struggling to beat them. And this wasn't your typical kind of like gritty Yale, like good Ivy League team. It was like a regular Yale squad.
They're a good club. They've got a tough club, that the Ivy League, they care so
much. When I knew that Yale was putting up a fight against us and we were struggling to beat them at home,
yeah,
it was like, oh shit, we're done. So again, I'm realistic. I hope that Roy's got better class coming in next year. There is some talk that Cole Anthony might come back and play this year. I hope he does for the sake of just the win-loss record. But you got to be completely healthy because his future to him is more important than the school's name itself. So I think if he comes back, obviously that'd be a huge plus. But yeah, it's a bad year, but I'm not going to bitch. That team has brought me many, many years of happiness compared to years of sadness, and I'm still got my Nationals World Series, and that can take me for about 2 years of happiness overall. So, yeah,
Jesus.
It's,
okay.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have even brought it up. I'm sorry for the audience that you had to go through. No, I hear you. I mean, I feel really bad. You could tell.
Yeah.
I can really tell. So looking at this Big 12 though, it's kind of flip-flopped, in some of these squads. Big 12 is usually really competitive and then Kansas wins. That's usually how it goes. Obviously, there's been a change in guard to an extent. We're going to see how long that lasts this year, but Baylor is 5-0, 15-1. Kansas, though, right there, nipping at their heels. They're 14-3, but they're 4-1. West Virginia, who's playing right now, are 3-2. Oklahoma's 3-2. Big games tonight with that. TCU's 3-2. Texas Tech, who's 18, is 3-2. So, and then you got Iowa State, and this is what I mean by change of guards. You got Iowa State and Kansas State sitting at 1-4, which is kind of a surprise there. So, like I said, usually Kansas for so long has won the damn thing. It's like, it's competitive, and then Kansas wins. So, we'll see if they can get back on the horse and get another long, Kansas, long streak going. Kansas isn't going to lose, but, they got a pretty good squad this year. They're third ranked, so we'll see where that goes. Now, looking at that Big East, like you mentioned, Seton Hall, Villanova, Providence, Butler, Creighton, and Marquette, all 6-0 to 3-3. So yeah, and obviously we just saw St. John's, like you said, they put up a fight. They're 12-7. They're only 1-5 in the conference, but they did put up a tough fight. So that's a really good basketball conference, man. Like I said, I like what they did there, and it's wide open. Now, when you look at the Big Ten does seem like, although you have a Michigan squad, that's 2-4. You have Ohio State, who's had plenty of success in the last 10 or 20 years. They're 2-5. There's a whole lot going on in the conference. I mentioned Rutgers. They're third in the frickin' conference. They're a game out, dude. They're 5-2 now. Michigan State, who still needs to get healthy, but it does seem like they're turning it around a little bit, 14-4. They're up to 11th in the country. They're 6-1. We know what to expect. It's Izzo. They're going to put it together. Illinois, though, I mentioned. Now they're 13-5, 5-2, a game out. Iowa's a good club. Wisconsin will get it together as the season goes on. They're 11-7. I assume that they'll be in the top 6 like every other year. Maryland, good club. They've kind of fallen off a little bit of late in some tight losses, but they're 4-3. Indiana's 4-3. Minnesota's 4-4. Penn State's a pretty good club. They're on a losing streak, but they're a pretty good club. 3-4. Well, actually, they did get off the snide, but I mean, the Big Ten's wide open, and it's kind of nice seeing a rising Illinois and an out-of-nowhere Rutgers, knocking on the door. So there's plenty to talk about. That's for damn sure when it comes to the Big Ten.
Well, let me – okay, there's 14 teams in the Big Ten. Besides Northwestern and Nebraska, every single effing team, and this is considering non-conference, which may be easier, but not always. No team – so you got Sparty, Illini, Rutgers, Iowa, Badgers, Turtles, Hoosiers, Gophers, Lions, Purdue, Michigan, Ohio State.
Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Oh, my.
Oh, my. No one has more than one loss at home. Sparty, 9-1. Illini, 11-1. Rutgers, 13-0.
They're freaking 13-0 at home. God, I really don't feel bad about that one.
Badgers 8-1. The Turtles 11-0. I mean, that shit is nuts. You talk about why I told you I'm afraid to bet on the road teams, and there's freaking of the top 12 teams in the Big 12, of all the games they've played, there's a collective 10 losses. That is insane. I mean, you can't make that up. I would get that if a couple of teams are undefeated at home, but almost the whole damn conference has one loss at home and no more besides 2 garbage teams. That just goes to show you, how dominant home court advantage is in college basketball too. Aside from looking at a gambling angle, Chris,
right.
the difference in the sport is there's really not quite a sport like it. You know, in the NFL, there's something to be said for home field advantage, but a great team can win on the road. You know, and in college football, there is an upside to it. I agree, but it's not the power of college basketball. You know, in hockey, like it maybe helps a little bit. In baseball, kind of come playoff time.
Yeah, if it's a tight game, go with the home team. That's different than, you know, what we're talking about.
Yeah. And, you know, but in most sports, like a good team can win on the road. But, man, this sport, man, props to the Big Ten. Obviously, I was giving the Big East credit earlier in the show. But, I mean, for the best conference right now in basketball, I don't think this is debatable. You got 5 of your top 7 teams ranked. The Badgers, who, despite being 11-7, have actually a really good resume.
Yeah, they do.
They beat Marquette, who's a respectable team. They beat Indiana. They beat Tennessee. They beat Ohio State. They beat Penn State. They beat Maryland. Like, I'm not saying that's the best in the country, Chris, but that's
right now that's damn good. You could end the season and be like, you know, that's pretty good.
And you know, we just talked about how literally we mentioned Ohio State, who's now 12th out of 14 in the Big Ten. When Wisconsin beat them, Ohio State was 5th.
Right.
So, you know, talk about such a ebb and flow in the Big Ten. But, you know, a team that's now 12th in your conference out of 14 teams was 2 weeks ago ranked 5th in the country. Like, holy cow. So, yeah, the Big Ten, man, it's going to be fun to watch the next about 6 or 7 weeks in conference play because good luck stealing games on the road.
Yeah. Now the only thing the Big Ten needs is to cut down the nets, though. You know what I mean? It's the only thing they need to really – because they've had years where they are the best conference or the second best or ACC then Big Ten and all that stuff's great, but you got to cut down the nets. So you can't get to the game. They've gotten to the game. Michigan's they've gotten to the game. But yeah, Wisconsin got to the game. They got to the Final Four back-to-back and got to the game. But you gotta be able to cut the nets down too. So we'll see if maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year where you go, I don't really see a national title, team out of the Big Ten, but it's so deep. Maybe they're going to be so hardened from it that they're going to, be like, we're ready for this. So that could be interesting. Just to kind of wrap up a couple other items before we get out of here, start to look and, for this weekend, some games this weekend too, the preview and some of the games under the radar. The Mountain West Conference right now, I'd have to say, is a football conference. Chunk of years ago, it actually was starting to kind of be on the up and up with Nevada and UNLV and New Mexico, and some other teams. This year, we'll find out, but San Diego State is a quality team, and they're 19-0. It's the only team that's unbeaten among, the bigger schools, not maybe out of all 300. I'm not quite sure about that, but they are the only unbeaten team sitting out there at 19-0, and they got up to 4th. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that conference to see if it's a little stronger this year. Speaking about keeping an eye on a conference to see if it gets a little bit better is the Pac-12. Since we've been doing this damn show, the Pac-12 just fell on its face when it comes to college basketball. We always harken back to those FSN Thursday night games that used to always have, a good game, or, just in general, there was so much more talent and it was deeper, over and over, back with the Pac-12, but it's been rough. Let's be honest. Some other teams have made a nice little run or whatever, Oregon and, other teams. Obviously Arizona's kind of been the standard there right now, in the last, 5 to 7 years or whatever, but you do have USC and Stanford actually right now. That could be their record. USC's 15-3, Stanford's 15-3. I got to really comb through their non-conference, but they're at 4-1, sitting tied for the conference lead. And then you have the ranked teams right below them, 4-2, 3-2, and 3-3. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that conference and see where that's going. Utah is a pretty good club. They're 10-7 right now, last in the conference. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But kind of funny that we're going this way because the SEC in the last, 2-3 years have really picked up in steam. It used to be Kentucky, Florida, and then maybe somebody else. LSU made a pretty damn good run a couple different times. Auburn has been a better club than we're used to seeing. They obviously made a hell of a run. They went all the way to the Final Four last year, right? And they lost a very competitive game that there was some intrigue, to say the least. And I think they played the first game of the Final Four. But anyway, that's last year. But you look at LSU, 5-0. Kentucky, 4-1. Florida, 4-1. Had a rough non-conference because they do have that type of schedule there where it's challenging because they've been a good program for a while. So they're 12-5. They just got a huge win over Auburn, and now they're up on Auburn 3-2. Alabama's did a hard-nosed defensive club that's been pretty good. Tennessee has made their runs, no doubt about it. A couple of clubs that have looked better. Missouri, not having a great year this year. But the SEC in the last, 3 years or so has really turned into a conference that you got to keep an eye on.
I mean, you felt like they kind of just had to. USC and Arizona growing up were guaranteed Elite Eight teams. I mean, UCLA used to always seem to have 2 to 3 future NBA players. Arizona always had a couple of studs, and it was fun to watch. And that was just like I said, a guaranteed couple of teams you put in your bracket. UCLA, yeah, and they're guaranteed to win the opening weekend. And it slowly has come back, and like you said, it's good for the sport. They're considered one of the top 5 conferences in basketball, but they have not played up to that name in a really, really long time. So, Oregon seems to be pretty damn good this year. As you mentioned, I think UCLA is kind of going back in the right direction, despite having a long stretch of just from miserable basketball. And USC, we said last show, they're getting the best player in the country next year. So if they're leading the Pac-12 right now, I'm guessing they're maybe a younger team, and you're bringing in the number 1 star in the country.
Right.
Okay, you're looking pretty good. All right, that's something to be proud of. Stanford really hasn't been good since the Lopez. Well, it's been a while, but they've had a couple of, it's been a minute for them being good too.
Yeah,
so you're right,
sure.
Chris. It is nice to maybe actually want to pay interest into the Pac-12 conference this year, because that has not been the story for quite a while. And like usual, Oregon State, they had a pretty good football year this year, Chris. They can't have a good basketball year too. That'd be too much craziness for the good old Oregon State Beavers fan club. But oh well, they're at least they're trying football. Yeah. That's fun just to see those schools who we got used to watch growing up kind of at least try to get back on the map. Again, I guess I mentioned UCLA. They're not even ranked right now, and they're middle of the pack. But as a conference, yeah, they're doing pretty good. My boy, Klay Thompson, actually got his jersey retired at Washington State. They had a home game this past week, and he went there and he has his jersey retired. So that's pretty badass. I love that guy. Besides him, I'm sure they've had other NBA players come out of there, but probably not a whole lot. So, just a little side note, cool for Klay Thompson to get the jersey put in the rafters at Washington State. And after Leach left, maybe the basketball program has to carry their weight a little bit in when we're talking about school sports in the Pac-12. So, yeah. And you pretty much hit on all the big conferences. The one part that is fun about college basketball, and it is impossible to watch. We watch a lot of games, we talk about a lot of games, but there's so many teams. It is fun just kind of scope through those other small name conferences, because they're probably going to have a couple of teams that are going to win some games in March. Whoever's leading the Mountain West or the WAC or the Horizon, or those schools are going to probably play some teams you like and probably beat them. Like Little Rock, they're 7-2 in the Sun Belt Conference. Them or Georgia State, they've been in the tournament the past couple of years and normally cause people hell. So
yeah, it's true.
I
think Georgia State won as a 14th seed. Now that I think about it right now.
Yeah, because they had the coach that slid off the chair and
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And, he's actually a Providence now. I was watching that game yesterday and I was like,
right.
Where the hell did he come from? So as you're going throughout the college basketball, you're pay attention to some of those small conferences. Check out the standings on ESPN because those teams are going to be in the tournament. And even though you maybe didn't see them play all year, they were never on ESPN. They can play ball, you know. So that's what kind of makes the sport even fun. Obviously, March Madness is we're about 7.5 weeks away from the drawing, but it's cool to kind of, you know, keep your ear out for, okay, well, this team in the Southland Conference is really good. Well, shit, okay, I maybe try to catch them play a game or something because everyone loves to fill out the brackets, and maybe knowing a couple of things about a couple of small nose teams, you know, or smaller tier teams can help you maybe try to win a couple of games when it gets down to the picking time, Chris.
Yeah, and like I said, reiterating the SEC, they're a legit conference now. Yeah, football they're better at. Yeah, we all know that. That's great. But they have some squads, they have some talent, and they've made some runs too. It hasn't just been all Kentucky. Like I said, Auburn and whatnot. So if you look at what we got going on tomorrow, Butler's got a big week, but also kind of what we mentioned about road games in the Big Ten, something to keep an eye on. Butler, number 13, Villanova, number 9. Definitely looking towards that. That's actually on CBS Sports Network, not on FS1. A lot of Fox and FS1 games, the Big East usually is in that, but that's not the case on this one. Then you have Maryland, a ranked team, going against Northwestern. Now they should beat Northwestern. Northwestern's 6-11. They should. Let's see how that goes. Illinois, the upstart Illinois this year, they're 13-5. They got to go on the road at Purdue. Another game where you go, that could be interesting.
Not touch do not touch Illinois.
Yeah, it's like, do you just go with Purdue and say screw it?
I mean, Purdue might be an average team, but at home, man, that team is a different beast. They murdered Sparty last Sunday. That I believe that was the worst loss Izzo's had as a top 10 team. They lost by 29. That wasn't even a damn game. So if you're looking out for bets, I'm telling you, and if they lose, that'll be my first apology on our next show. But do not bet Illinois. They might. I doubt they're even favored. I know their ranking looks better. They have a better conference record. But dude, if you bet Illinois, I wish you good luck because Purdue's probably winning that game. So that's my lock of the week, Chris. I wish I knew the spread so we could break down the line.
I don't have the spread. I know that the power index though for ESPN has them at 75% winning Purdue, and it's crazy because the game before or 2 games before, freaking Minnesota almost won the game. The last 50 seconds, they had a 5-point freaking lead and ended up losing in that same overtime. I think it was double overtime. That was rough, dude. And that's where one of those where you're going to look back and be like, oh, dude, that would have been such a big win. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because of kind of how we laid it out. Another one here, Texas Tech, who's been just okay this year. They obviously lost Culliver and some other talent. They're going on the road at TCU. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Rutgers, upset Rutgers is traveling to Iowa, not an easy place to play. We talked about the AAC. Memphis is traveling to UCLA. I'm sorry, to Tulsa. I just skipped the day there. It was Tulsa. So, I mean, that could be one where you go, man, maybe you pick Tulsa there in the underdog. That could be interesting. Let's see how good USC is. Because on Thursday, I don't think it's going to be on FSN, but on Thursday night, it's going to be on ESPNU, not the Pac-12. That's part of the reason with the Pac-12. You got to figure out how to get the Pac-12 in order to watch the Pac-12, the Pac-12 network I'm speaking of. But Washington State just came off a big win. They got a game against Colorado. I think they'll lose that game. But, yeah, let's see USC, what they're made of playing at Oregon, see if they can do something. And Michigan State's got to go on the road again to Indiana. You never know. And the cool thing about Friday nights is it's not just Ivy League Friday nights anymore. They're actually getting big, Big East, Big Ten. They're getting some big games on Friday night. Marquette at Butler. Like I said, Butler is right in the mix of a really tough run for them. And then this weekend, you have the Big 12 in the SEC Challenge. They don't do it in the non-conference like the ACC and the Big Ten. They do it during the year, which is kind of cool. And there's some matchups that you think on the surface would be good if you look at the last couple of years, Iowa State and Auburn, but you look at the records right now, that doesn't feel like it's going to be that good of a game. Same with like Tennessee and Kansas. And so, I'd say Kentucky, Texas Tech, that'll be good. Baylor at Florida. You may want to take a little marker on that one, a little flyer on that one. I don't know. Maybe Baylor is going to be that squad that gets the number one ranking, and then they lose within a week. That's going to be a good game right there. And then Sunday, and I'm going to let you jump in here too. I'm just kind of previewing some of this stuff. We can talk about some of these games. Michigan State at Minnesota. Minnesota definitely needs that game. And Indiana's got Michigan State and Maryland coming into town, so they're definitely going to be challenged. No doubt about that. Any of these games stand out to you here that I'm talking about?
Purdue's got what? They got Illinois and the Badgers back-to-back home games this week. Again, I wouldn't bet the Badgers either. So, I do like the SEC, the Big 12. Again, Iowa State's probably they can score a lot of points this year, but man, they've fallen so far off. That's a team I've loved for a long time because they've been really good. I guess go figure. Two of my favorite teams both suck this year. Iowa State's been brutal this year. The Big East continues to stay fun. I think we're going to have games to talk about them for all year, Chris. Just because there's only 10 teams and all 10 teams are respectable. Like you said, St. John's, like they're the worst team in the conference, and they just took the best team tooth and nail. So I think Butler, and it seems like Butler's played a ranked team their past like 5 games in a row. I'm not sure what they did to piss off the scheduling gods, but just to look at it really quickly, I'll pull it up. They've played. Butler was at DePaul. Okay, and DePaul again, the 9th team, but they're pretty good. They played Seton Hall, at Providence, and they played Creighton and St. John's. Like it's the Big East is going to be fun. I think those teams might beat each other up a little too much, maybe hurt their seeding a little bit, but it's gonna be a fun time. But yeah, for Saturday, as you were talking about, don't freeze on me now. West Virginia, I think, Chris, is a little bit better than the regular West Virginia. Normally where I talk about, Huggins' team, they could either be a Sweet 16 or, out in the first round. I think this team's a little more talented than his regular squads. So watching West Virginia a couple times can't hurt. They always going to play the up-tempo offense. They're always going to, press you. They're always going to crash the boards. But I think that this West Virginia team's a little bit better, and they won't be that team that goes on that, 4-game slide. So when you're filling out your brackets, you're like, oh shit, do I take West Virginia? I don't know.
And they're still not going to go to class and graduate. No, I'm just kidding. 45-18. They're up right now on Texas, dude. 45-18. Golly.
Yeah. And not that Texas is anything, they're not a joke, but holy cow. Nebraska at Rutgers, that's going to be another win for Rutgers. Rutgers is going to be 14-0 on their home court. That is crazy. If you would have told me that Rutgers would be 14-0 this year on their home court, midway through January, you'd be like, okay, did I miss something? Did they get a stud? Like, what have they been doing? I don't know. But that is kind of one of the cooler underlying stories that we've had in college basketball this year. But yeah, like I said, man, it's so nice now that football's done. Like, if you got another sport to come up with, you can watch college basketball all day. The setup is normally just as good as college football. You wake up, you maybe have your Big Ten 11 o'clock tip. You're always going to have a pretty good couple of games during the afternoon. ESPN normally has a pretty good slate at night. I will say I kind of like watching this Memphis team just because I like Penny. Memphis plays SMU. That should be a really fun game. Again, I would lean towards Memphis because they're at home. But Memphis and SMU are both having really good seasons. Memphis is 14-3. SMU is 13-4 in the American Conference. That should be a pretty legit game. I'm actually I'm going to try to go to it when SMU hosts Memphis. I believe that's coming up later in the school year. I hopefully have a night off to go watch them because that should be a pretty fun one. And besides that, man, it's just time to just start getting into the fix of watching college basketball. Like I said, there's so many teams. You kind of have to handpick, hey, I want to watch so-and-so today to get a feeling on them. I want to watch, the Big 12 this week, and I want to watch the ACC next week. And with all the teams in basketball, you kind of have to handpick how you're watching all the games because box scores can be deceiving when it comes to college basketball. A team could win by 15 points, and it could be a great win, or they got lucky and the other team fouled them at the end. It's so hard to kind of judge college games from the scoreboard sheet just because how the games finish and the games and runs that go on are kind of deceiving. But I will say one thing that's kind of weird, just for a small little stat. They moved the 3-point line back like 6 inches, I believe, this year. I believe I saw a stat that the shooting percentages of 3-pointers here is down I believe it's 7%. So even though it's been something small, taking the 3-point line back 6 inches has I believe it's when they dropped the nationwide average almost 7% from threes. So maybe my Tar Heels should quit jacking up threes. If we couldn't make them from the stripe a couple years ago, we sure as hell can't make them, Chris, if you add a couple of 6 inches back to the line.
Right? That's funny. And then another thing to do is, for those, because there's a lot of NBA snobs now that just look at the college basketball like it's unwatchable. There's nothing to watch. And that's a little old because, I could put on a fucking NBA game of two crappy teams and it could be crappy basketball. How many times are we going to have a fast break failed 3-point attempt? How many times have you seen that in the NBA now? Hey, you got a 2-on-1. Yeah, let's just kick it out to a 3, even though you had a much easier, you either pass or keep the ball and get a layup. Which do you want? What about those 4 to 5 minutes, runs where it's kind of a partial break. The action's kind of a partial break. There's really no organization, but they're just going back and forth missing threes. 3 miss, 3 miss, 3, and then that's all they do for 5 minutes. No field goals made. You know what I mean? So the whole snob thing sometimes at this NBA, now that they've changed the rules up there so much, it gets a little old. But it's also what I do in the NBA is what I do in what I do in college too, is try to find the best matchup and want that too. The best against best. That's where you're really gonna get the difference makers, and you can find out who's got the better role players and whatnot too. But yeah, we're going a little long, so let's get on out of here, sir.
All right. Well, as I said last show, we do
that's
the
right.
crappy pick.
Right.
It ain't over, brother. Best part. We do the crappy crafty pick of the week. I nicknamed Chris the Crafty Vet just because he's one of the older guys in our class, from older than the rest of us. So he's the crafty vet to me. So we call it the crafty crappy pick of the week. Normally in college football, we find 2 garbage teams, 2 just straight trash garbage ass teams, and we pick a game. So now, do you have your computer up so I can give you the info?
What day are we on? Saturday, I assume?
No, Wednesday.
Oh, what the hell? Because this is tough to find. There's so many games. You got to keep it freaking. Okay, what, this coming Wednesday or next Wednesday?
This Wednesday, 1/22, 2 days from now. Okay, we're going at 6:05 Central Time.
Okay? Well, that helps.
We have the Lehigh Mountain Hawks against the Holy Cross Crusaders. Okay, as you're looking this up, Lehigh is 5-13, and
I can't even find the game. Okay, here we go.
And Holy Cross is a marvelous 2-17.
What happened to Lehigh? Didn't Lehigh beat Kansas 12 years ago?
Well, Lehigh beat Duke. I think Lehigh was the C.J. McCollum.
That's what it was.
Story.
Yeah, that's what it was. That was somebody else I was thinking about.
You might be thinking of Bucknell or something.
Yeah, Bucknell. That's what it was. That's what it was.
Lehigh's 5-13. They're going on the road. They're traveling to Holy Cross Crusaders, who's 2-17. This game's in Worcester, Massachusetts. This arena sits 3,536 people, so I would expect maybe a third of it to fill up for this barn burner of a game. What does your gut say? as we have the Hawks going against people who would lead religious revolts. Not to get too big of a hole in here, but we have religious fighters against Hawks. What does your gut say in this marvelous matchup of two bottom feeder teams?
Up there in I don't like Worcester on my steak. Let's just say that right away. Lehigh, it's funny. And then I said, Bucknell, and their last game they played was against Bucknell. It's like, hey, that's the team I was talking about. And they got beat handily by them too. So that tells you something too. This one's interesting though. I mean, cause that extra 3 wins goes a long way in my book. You know what I mean? It's never a good thing though when you give up more than you score. So when you give up 79 points, you only score 66. Oh wow, this is weird. Remember we kept it on the religion tip, right? Because of Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Their points per game is 66.6.
Are we sure? They're struggling.
Are we sure we don't want to just shut the podcast down?
Oh,
it's scary. All right. So I'm going Lehigh because they're the Mountain Hawks. It's not just a normal hawk, dude. You're up in the mountains. This isn't foothill stuff. You know what I mean? And I think that they can see the Christian group of Holy Cross going up the mountain, and they can come by and just swoop their treasures and whatever else they're trying to hide, and maybe the text that they're spreading the good word of whatever religion that they think is the good word. And long story short, even though they lost a tough one to Bucknell, really good club there, I'm going Lehigh. Those extra wins for me are what's going to get it done. I'm going Lehigh for the crafty pick of the week. And I will say this, for those who paid attention, for the crafty, crappy pick of the week for college football the last couple of years, you've made money. Hold on. Just hold off on betting this stuff, okay? Because there's about 172 games every night. So give me a little time to warm up into this, okay?
Yeah. I honestly want to say in football this year, I believe we went, it was either 9-3 or 8-4. No lie. I think
it was 8-4.
A good chunk of money. 8-4, that ain't bad. In the Vegas world, an elite Vegas gambler handicapper goes 55 to 58%. We're giving you more than that. So let's, call a spade. College football, we're pretty damn good with our crafty crap pick of the week. College basketball, this is our first time ever. Let's get the, grease the wheels up a little bit. Let's see how it goes. But nonetheless, I love doing those segments. Sadly, the game is at the Hart Center. We always like to make fun of the stadium names. It's just the Hart Center. That's you wonder why you don't get much attendance, but whatever.
Right. They didn't even list the vivid seat ticket price. I think they're giving them away.
So, anyways, Chris, I'll be back next week. I'm sure I'll be raving about the Big East because that's my way to make up for my Tar Heels not offering me much pride this year. I'll switch to being a Big East fan for a while.
Tar Heels Golden State this year is really a tough one for you, but we'll move on.
I'm okay. I'm not gonna bitch, and if I did, you'd be yelling back right at me. So
exactly.
Well, the boys will be back next week. I hope you have a good, safe week. Don't lose your car keys. Be an idiot like one of the hosts on this show, and enjoy watching college basketball this whole week, especially Saturday. We're out tonight. Peace.